Yeah.
Well, Summer and folks, we reported yesterday that there was an addition to the Red River Zoo. A baby crane hatched, but there is more news. There wasn't just one. There was another egg that hatched, so there are 2 new additions. The cranes are a part of the species survival programs. Now, with the addition, there are now 60 in the program overall throughout the nation. Zoo officials say that both chicks are doing well.
Can't wait to see them in the next few weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, same. Summer, thanks.